Welcome to Ancient Tales for Today. Now, we're going to be looking at lesson number 16, but by way of review, 我们稍微温习一下, by way of review, the last time we came upon a new person. His name was Abraham. And he was asked to travel to a distant place. And for no good reason, because God asked him to go, and he had learned to trust God, so he went to this new place. Now, he was, we say in English, no spring chick. He was no young person. He was already 75 years old. So now we come to today's lesson, and it's entitled The Problem with Fixing Things. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. So let's take a look at the story and listen to it being read, and then I'll be back in just a few minutes.
Story number 16, The Problem with Fixing Things Yourself. Last time we saw that in the ancient tales about Abraham, he did say yes to heaven's call to leave his homeland and travel to a new country. He was also given the promise that he would be the father of a great nation. The trouble was, Abraham didn't have a son, and he was 75 years old. His wife Sarah was also old and long past the time for having children. So how can you have many descendants to make a great nation when you don't have any children? Abraham and his wife Sarah must have often talked about that problem. In the end, they decided they would have to work it out themselves. Sarah suggested to Abraham that he could have children through her servant girl. That way he could have descendants and the promise could come true. Of course, this was not what heaven had planned. As always happens when we decide to fix things ourselves, this decision led to all kinds of problems. Eventually, heaven's plan did come true, and the son from the human plan had to be sent away. There was much crying and sadness because of the decision made by Abraham and Sarah to fix the situation themselves instead of waiting for the promise to come true. How often we do things like that? Instead of waiting, we take things into our own hands and try to fix those things ourselves. We want to be in control. We want to do things the way we choose. We want to lead our lives the way we think is right. So often it comes out all wrong because of our mistakes. How important it is to be patient. We need to trust in God's plan for our lives and to follow the right path He gives us. Only then will the promise come true.
The last time we began talking about Abraham in our ancient tales, we saw that he did say yes to 上天的呼召. Okay? That's the call of heaven. So heaven said, or God said, go, and he went. He left his homeland. His homeland, 他的祖国, and he traveled to a new country. Okay? He was given a promise. God gave him a promise, 一个承诺. Okay? And this promise was that he would be the father of a great nation. 他会变成会做a great nation 很大的国度的先祖. And remember what we said last time? The father means 父亲, but it means that the father of a great nation means that the descendants, okay, 这个后代 would become a great nation. Okay? The trouble was, okay, and this is the very interesting part about today's story, 唯一的问题, or唯一的, actually it's a big problem. The trouble was, 问题是 he didn't have a son. 他没有儿子. And he was already how old? 75 years old. And his wife was also old. We're not talking about young people, we're talking about old people. 75. I think his wife was 10 years younger, so maybe she's 65. Long past the time for having children, okay? So that means 已经超过这个生孩子的时间, long past the time for having children. So, we've got a problem. How do you have descendants, 这个后代, okay, and to make a great nation, okay, if you have no children? See, that's a problem. No children, no descendants, 没有后代. Then how can you have a great nation? My guess is that Abraham and his wife Sarah, okay, Sarah, that was his wife's name, they must have often talked about that problem. What are we going to do? Year after year went by, no children, and now they were old. They were old, and still no children. In the end, 最后, or sometimes you can say 终于, okay, in the end, they decided that they would have to work it out themselves. See, they trusted God, but they didn't trust God all the way. Okay? In the end, they decided to work it out themselves. What does it mean to work it out themselves? 他们自己会处理这件事情, okay? Sarah suggested to Abraham that he could have children through her servant girl. Okay, what is a servant girl? 女佣人. So Sarah suggested, this is Sarah's suggestion. This is Abraham's wife. 她的建议 that Abraham could have children, 他可以有孩子们 through her, 就经过她的女佣人. So you spend a night with a servant girl, she has a child, now you will have descendants. Going on? Yeah. That way he could have descendants and the promise could come true. Okay? 这样的话, okay, that way, Okay, 这样的话 he could have descendants, 他就会有后代, right? And the promise would 成真 the promise 这个承诺 okay becomes true, it comes true 会成真啊当然 this was not what heaven planned 上天就是神根本没有这种计划 this was not God's plan. Whose plan was it? This plan was Sarah's plan, okay? And of course, Abraham agreed and he participated in it. And then we'll finish this session with one last sentence. As always happens, 每一次有这种事情的话 当我们决定 to fix things ourselves 靠自己处理事情的时候 靠自己处理事情的时候 this decision led to all kinds of problems. Okay? 这个决定 what? 这个导致 what? Many kinds of problems. Actually, for many generations, it led to all kinds of problems. To lead to is 导致 okay? It leads to many kind of problems. And some of the next stories are all about those problems. So you'll want to stick by and listen to these stories. They really are interesting. But for now, we're going to take a little break. We're going to do a few other things, but I will be back to explain the rest of the story. Okay, now we're going to look at some more light on our path. First of all, let's go to Psalms 37, verse 4.
是诗篇的37篇第4节。
And here it's a very simple, short verse. It says, Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart.
这里说，又要以耶和华为乐，他就将你心里所求的赐给你。
Okay, now this is quite a promise. This is a very, very 无限的一个应许。
对呀，哇，你心里所求的，他就会给你。
Right. So, but the first part of it is the condition, right?
对，
The condition is what?
要以耶和华为乐。
Okay, so now there is a condition, but God will give us whatever we want. Now, I have a question here for you.
好，
What happens when you are expecting something to happen? You know something is going to happen, but it doesn't happen. And it just keeps going and going and going. How do you feel?
哦，我明白。我跟朋友们重复一下你的问题哈，就是说我期待一个东西会来，会给我，可是等啊等啊还没有来。哇，我想那个时候是最辛苦的了，因为一直知道它会来，可是它还没有发生。我想那个就是人生的关键一个 point，成功失败就是在你还要不要再等一下去，再等下去，等到最后的那几分钟。
And in fact, what you said is very true. It is the secret of success. When we are waiting, that we don't make bad decisions, but we still wait until it comes.
但是有的时候等不及了，就放弃了。
So that's a problem too,
对，
isn't
对。
it? So, well, that's just what the Bible says, that He will give us the desires of our heart. Okay, eventually heaven's plan did come true. 上天的计划终于成真. Okay, did come true, but the son from the human plan had to be set away, and the son from the human plan. So what you have is 人的计划. Now, we saw what the plan was. The plan was not a good plan. It was not part of God's plan. So the human plan, 人的计划, that son, 那个儿子必须被送走, had to be sent away. Going on. There was much crying and sadness when the son was sent away. Okay? Because God said, this is not the son. You and Sarah are going to have a son. This is not really your son. 痛哭, painful crying, and sadness, 悲伤. Okay? Because of the decision made by Abraham and Sarah. 这因为他们所做的决定. What was their decision? What decision did they make that caused crying and sadness? Okay? They wanted to fix the situation themselves instead of waiting for the promise to come. Okay? They wanted to 靠自己处理好这件事情. Okay? They wanted to fix the situation instead of 而不是不愿意等候这个一定要来的应许，特别是这个应许成真了，他们不愿意等候。Okay, so now you have it. There was much crying and sadness because of the decision made by Abraham and Sarah to fix the situation themselves instead of waiting for the promise to come. Which leads me to do some thinking, because that's what these stories are all about. Stories are to help us to do some thinking. How often we do things like that? 我们那样做 many times. How often means many times we do the same things just like that. Instead of waiting, 不再等候, we take things into our own hands. 我们是靠自己的手段，靠自己的努力，靠自己而 try to fix things. 处理好这些事情，解决这些情况。Okay? We want to be in control. 我们要控制一切，我们要控制事情。We want to be in control. We want to do things the way we choose. Well, I think that that's true. We are all quite selfish, aren't we? I want to do my thing and you want to do your thing. I think that's natural. That's natural. It's not good, but it's natural. 自私是自然而有的. It's not good, but that's the way human beings are. We want to do things the way we choose. So, 我们做事就是要按照自己的决定. We want to do things the way we choose. We want to lead our lives the way we think is right. We want to lead our lives. That means we want to 跑自己的生活，自己的人生啊。Okay? To lead our lives means to control our lives or the way we live our lives. The way we think is right. 按照我们自己所想的是对的。Okay? If we think it's right, we want to do it. And that's especially true nowadays. But there seems to be a problem here because sometimes what we think is right may not be right. So often it comes out all wrong. 最后的结果呢，反而是坏的，不是好的。Because we choose to do things our way. So often it comes out all wrong because of our own mistakes. Going on. How important to be patient. How important to be patient. Okay, patient, patience, 耐心，忍耐。OK， 那忍耐是多么重要 ？How 多么重要 ？How important 忍耐。Of course, we know that being patient is very important. But in this lesson, probably the key thought, and maybe some of our listeners and our viewers, they say, okay, this is your religion, this is your God. Well, I'm just telling the story from my own experience that we need to trust God with our lives, for our lives. John Ash, I need to trust God with my life. 要信任这个神啊，信任上帝 with our lives. In other words, let God lead our lives and follow the right path. 跟从一个好的路。Which 路? The path He gives us. 他所指定的路。Only then will the promise come true. 只能够到这个地步，才能够把人生的应许成真。And we will be back in just a few minutes to wrap today's story up.
艾老师有一个字，我希望您在这解释一下，这就是在故事里边的开始的时候说到 Heaven's Call.
Okay, Heaven's Call, it means that God in heaven is asking you to do something. So you have a feeling in your mind that God wants you to do something.
对对
Okay, 明白吗？
明白，是上帝对你的呼召。
Okay.
呼召。
Okay, so now the next one. What is our next one? Descendants.
Descendants.
Ooh, that's a big word. Descendants. What does descendants mean?
后代，我们的子孙后代。
Okay.
艾老师，我知道你最近看到你很可爱的孙子，你的后代，你觉得怎么样？
哎呀，他们太活泼了。
哦，很好玩。
Yes, they have gone home. They went back to America.
嗯，
But now I'm so tired.
你很累，但是你也很快乐，是不
Of
是
course, of course.
哦，
非常
对。
快乐。Descendants 后代。
Descendants
Okay, and then the last one is to be in control.
be in control
So, what does be in control mean to you?
control 是控制了 be in control 我想就是说许多事情都在控制之内，你可以 handle 它，你可以控制它，对吧？
Right. And so, what would it mean to lose control?
失去控制了。
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And now let's go on to the next section, our conclusion. Okay, well, we've come down to the last little bit of today's lesson. And we're talking about human nature. We are human nature. 人的本性. We all want to fix things. Sometimes I look, well, I am the same way, but I see it in others. I see it in my wife. 特别是看我的太太. When she hears about a problem, she says, well, you should. It's easy to see this in others. 很容易看别人. But not so easy to see it in ourselves. We want to fix things. 而且呢，我们是经常用人的计划 our plan, our selfish plan, what we want. And then, of course, when we don't listen to God, then here's the problem. We will be left to the results of our bad decisions. Well, God is not finished. God has an incredible, 很难以相信的一个承诺. And so Abraham is still going to have some very fascinating dreams come true. So you'll want to join us the next time as we talk about an incredible promise. See you then.